The girl stood frozen after hearing, "Don't touch that ring," her clothes worn, her hands trembling as people stared. Seconds later, when the truth about who she really was surfaced, jaws dropped, and the entire store fell into stunned silence. Subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and comment where in the world you're watching from, because now I'm going to tell you everything. The heavy door of Miller's Fine Jewelry was much harder to push than Emily Wilson expected. A bell jingled above her head, too loud. The warm air inside made her face sting. She blinked, letting her eyes adjust. The store was quiet and full of soft lights that made everything sparkle. "Can I help you?" A woman with a long, dark braid was looking at her from behind a counter. She had a kind face, but her eyes moved quickly over Emily's too thin coat and her shoes with holes. Emily knew that look. It was the "you don't belong here" look. "Just looking," Emily whispered, her voice barely there. She shoved her cold hands into her pockets. "All right, let me know if you need anything," the woman said. She went back to arranging some necklaces, but Emily could feel she was still watching. Emily walked slowly. Her stomach hurt from hunger. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. She wasn't here to steal. She just wanted to be somewhere warm for a few minutes. To pretend, just for a little while, that she lived in a world where places like this were normal. Then she saw it. It was in a case by itself, on a little pillow of dark blue velvet, a simple silver ring with a single clear stone. It wasn't the biggest or the shiniest thing in the store, but Emily couldn't look away. It seemed calm. Without thinking, her dirty finger reached out to touch the glass above it. "Don't touch that ring, girl," the voice boomed across the quiet store. Emily jumped back, her heart hammering against her ribs. A tall, older man with white hair was standing up from a desk in the corner. He looked very angry. The woman with the braid gasped. Over by the door, a big security guard with a beard took a step forward, his hand hovering near his radio. They were all looking at her. Their faces were full of the same suspicion she saw every day. They saw a dirty homeless kid they thought she was about to steal. I wasn't." Emily's words stuck in her throat. She took a step back toward the door, ready to run. But then, something impossible happened. The ring in the case began to glow. A warm, golden light swirled inside the stone, growing brighter. It pulsed softly, like a tiny heartbeat made of light. The glow spread, filling the glass case with a gentle radiance. Everyone froze. The old man's angry face went pale. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He stared at the ring, then at Emily, then back at the ring. "Mr. Miller?" the woman with the braid asked, her voice shaky. Henry Miller didn't answer her. He walked slowly to the case, his eyes locked on the glowing ring. He fumbled with a set of keys, his hands trembling. He unlocked the glass door and carefully, so carefully, lifted the ring from its velvet pillow. He held it in his palm. The light was warm on his skin. He turned and looked straight at Emily. "Give me your hand," he said. His deep voice wasn't angry anymore. It was full of something else, something like fear or hope. Emily shook her head. She wanted to run, but the guard was by the door, and the kind-faced woman was blocking the other way. She was trapped. Slowly, she lifted her hand. Henry Miller didn't put the ring on her finger. He just placed it in her cold, open palm. The light flared. It wasn't bright enough to hurt her eyes, but it was suddenly everywhere, wrapping around her hand in a warm, golden hug. It felt like being safe. For the first time in a very long time, she didn't feel cold. Henry Miller made a choking sound. He was staring at her face as the light slowly faded from the ring, leaving it just a normal, pretty thing in her hand. "Child," he whispered. His pale blue eyes were wet. "What is your name?" "Emily," she said. "Emily Wilson." He nodded, swallowing hard. "And what was your mother's name?" Why was he asking this? Confused and scared, Emily told the truth. It was all she had left of her mom. "Annie. Her name was Annie Miller." The old man's legs seemed to give out. He stumbled back and sank into a chair behind the counter. He put his face in his big, thick hands, and his shoulders started to shake. He was crying. The woman, Sarah, rushed over. "Mr. Miller, Henry, what's wrong?" He looked up, his face streaked with tears. He pointed a trembling finger at Emily. "She's Annie's girl. My Annie. She's my granddaughter." The words hung in the warm, quiet air. Emily looked down at the ring in her hand. It had stopped glowing. She looked at the crying old man who said he was her grandfather. Her mind was a storm of questions and fear. This was a trick. It had to be. Adults didn't give you anything. They made promises, and then they left. But the ring had glowed, only for her. Henry Miller wiped his eyes, trying to compose himself. "Where is Annie? Where is my daughter?" Emily's voice was a tiny, broken thing. "She got sick a year ago. She's gone." A fresh wave of pain crashed over the old man's face. He nodded, as if he'd expected it but hoped against it. "So you've been alone all this time?" Emily didn't answer. She just pulled her sleeves down over her fists and stared at his shoulders, not his eyes. She was counting her breaths in her head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Henry Miller looked at Sarah, then at the silent guard, David, whose own face was now a mask of stunned recognition. Finally, he looked back at Emily, this small, cold girl holding his family's lost ring. "You're not alone anymore," he said, the words rough with emotion. "You're coming home with me." Home. The word was a trap. It was a warm room that would get cold. It was a promise that would be broken. Emily held the ring tighter, its metal warming to her touch. She didn't trust him. She didn't trust any of this. But the store was warm, and he said the word home. And for a hungry, tired girl, that word was a magnet, pulling her toward a light she was desperately afraid to believe in. The house on Elm Street was big and old, with a wide porch. Henry Miller held the door open for Emily. She walked inside very slowly, counting her steps on the polished wood floor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. "This is the living room," Henry said. His voice was too loud in the quiet house. "The kitchen is through there. Upstairs is, well, you can see it all later." Emily didn't care about the rooms. She saw a soft blue sofa. She saw a thick rug. She felt the steady heat coming from vents in the floor. It was so warm. She just stood in the middle of the living room, not knowing what to do. "You must be hungry," Henry said. He walked into the kitchen. Emily heard him opening cabinets. She followed him and stood in the doorway, watching. He made a sandwich with thick slices of turkey and cheese. He poured a glass of milk. He put it all on the table. "Sit," he said gently. Emily sat. She ate the sandwich slowly at first, then faster. It was the best food she had ever tasted. Henry sat across from her, not eating, just watching her with those sad, pale blue eyes. "Your mother," he began, then stopped. He cleared his throat. "Annie. She loved peanut butter and banana sandwiches. She would eat them for every meal if I let her." Emily looked up from her plate. "She liked those," she said quietly. It was true. A little piece of her mother was in this strange kitchen. Henry's eyes filled with tears again. He looked away quickly. "I have a guest room. It can be your room. Sarah is bringing some things over for you." "Sarah?" Emily asked. "The young woman from the store, with the braid. She is a good person." About an hour later, Sarah arrived with a large paper bag. She smiled at Emily. "Hello again. I brought you a few things. I had to guess the size." In the bag were 2 pairs of jeans, some t-shirts, socks, and a soft blue sweatshirt. There was also a new toothbrush and a hairbrush. Emily touched the sweatshirt. It was new. No one had ever given her new clothes before. "Thank you," Emily whispered. "Let's go see your room," Sarah said. The room had yellow walls and a white bed. It was empty except for a dresser and a small desk. It did not look like anyone's room. It looked like a waiting room. "It's not much," Henry said from the hallway, his voice awkward. "We can get more, whatever you like." "It's fine," Emily said. She didn't want to say what she liked. Liking things made it hurt more when they were taken away. The next morning, Henry took her back to the jewelry store. "This is your family store," he told her in the car. "One day, it will be yours." Emily didn't want a store. She wanted a door that locked and a bed that didn't disappear, but she nodded. At the store, Sarah showed her how to clean the glass cases without leaving streaks. Emily worked quietly. It was a peaceful job. For a little while, she could forget about everything. David, the guard, nodded to her from his post by the door. He didn't smile, but he didn't look at her with suspicion anymore. He just watched. Then, in the middle of the afternoon, the bell on the door jingled hard. A man walked in. He was dressed in a nice suit, but his face was sharp and angry. He looked a little like Henry, but harder. "Henry," the man said, not looking at the jewelry. He stared right at Emily, who was frozen with her cleaning cloth in her hand. Henry came out from the back room. His whole body went stiff. "Robert, what do you want?" Robert Miller laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "I heard a crazy story. I heard you found some stray kid off the street and decided she's family. I came to see the show for myself." "She is my granddaughter," Henry said, his voice low. "Your granddaughter?" Robert stepped closer to Emily. She shrank back against the display case. "Let me see. Dirty clothes, scared eyes. She looks like every other homeless kid in Ohio. What's the trick, Henry? Is she a good actor? Did someone put her up to this?" "There is no trick," Henry said. "The ring glowed for her." "The ring!" Robert shouted, throwing his hands up. "A fairy tale. You are a foolish old man. You are so lonely you are believing in magic now. This girl is not Annie's child. She is a liar looking for a warm house." Emily felt each word like a slap. She looked at the floor. He was saying out loud all the fears in her own head. "You will leave my store now," Henry said, his face turning red. "Your store?" Robert's voice turned cold and quiet. "Our father's store. And when you are gone, it is my store. I will not let some street kid steal it from me. I am going to court, Henry. I will prove this is a scam. I will prove she is not family. Then everyone will see you are just a sad, old fool." He turned and left, slamming the door so hard the bell screamed. The store was silent. Emily's hands were shaking. She dropped the cleaning cloth. Henry and Sarah were looking at her. She saw the worry on their faces. She saw the problem she had brought into their lives. I need air," Emily mumbled. She walked past David, who was watching Robert's car speed away, and out onto the sidewalk. The cold felt familiar. It felt real. She looked down the street toward the bus stop. She knew how to run. She knew how to disappear. It was what she was good at. Henry's house was warm, but it came with this angry man and talk of courts and lies. Maybe it was easier to just keep running. She took one step toward the corner, then another. The cold air bit Emily's cheeks. She took another step toward the bus stop. Her feet moved on their own, carrying her away from the warm store and the shouting and the problems. "Going somewhere?" The voice was low and calm. It came from right beside her. Emily jumped. David, the security guard, was standing there. She hadn't even heard him come out of the store. He wasn't wearing his jacket, just his uniform shirt. He didn't look cold. Emily shrugged, staring at the cracked sidewalk. "Just walking." "Toward the bus stop," David said. It wasn't a question. She didn't answer. She just pulled her thin coat tighter. "Robert Miller is a loud man," David said. He wasn't looking at her. He was looking down the street where Robert's car had gone. "He says things to make people scared, to make them run." "He's right, though," Emily whispered. Her voice was very small. "I am a street kid. I am a problem." David was quiet for a long moment. "Look at me, Emily." She slowly lifted her eyes from the ground. She looked at his shoulder, not his face. "Your mother," David said. His own voice got a little rough. "Annie." She hated when people called her Annie. She liked Anna. Only her dad called her Annie, and it made her mad every time. Emily's breath caught in her chest. Her eyes snapped up to meet his. They were a tired brown, but they were serious. How do you know that?" "I grew up here," David said. "In Cedarville. I knew Anna a long time ago. We were friends." He looked away, his jaw tight. She was a good person, the best. She believed in people when no one else did. Emily felt a strange ache in her throat. This big, quiet man knew her mom. He called her Anna. "She left town," David continued. "And I left town too, for a different reason. I made a promise to her before she left. I told her I'd keep an eye on her family, if she ever needed help." He let out a slow breath, a cloud of white in the cold air. "I didn't keep that promise. I didn't come back here for many, many years. When I did come back, she was already gone." He finally looked back at Emily. "So you see, Robert is wrong. You are not a problem. You are a second chance, for Henry. And for me." Emily didn't know what to say. The wind blew, but she felt a little less cold inside. "Come back inside," David said. It wasn't an order. It was an invitation. Running is what he wants you to do. Don't give him what he wants. Emily looked at the bus stop one more time. Then she nodded. She turned and walked back toward the jewelry store. David walked beside her, a solid, quiet presence. Inside, Henry was pacing. Sarah was trying to talk to him. They both stopped when Emily and David came back in. "Emily," Henry said, rushing over. "I'm so sorry. My brother. His words are poison." "It's okay," Emily said, though it wasn't. David spoke to Henry, his voice all business again. "Sir, he was parked across the street for over an hour yesterday, before he ever came in. He's watching. He's planning something." Henry sank onto his stool behind the main counter. He looked old and very tired. "He wants the store. He has always wanted it. He thinks it should be his. Now he sees Emily as a threat to his plan." "He is a threat to her," David said, his words simple and heavy. "His plan is to scare her away, or to make a judge send her away. We have to be ready." Sarah put a hand on Emily's shoulder. "We are ready. She is part of this family now. We protect family." Emily stood there, surrounded by these three adults who were suddenly on her side. She didn't trust it yet, but she remembered what David said about a second chance. She looked at Henry, who was rubbing his forehead with his thick fingers. "What do we do?" Emily asked. It was the first time she had asked them for anything. Henry looked up. "We live our lives. You go to school. You live in my house. We run this store. We show the town you belong here. And," he said, his voice getting stronger, "we fight him if we have to." Later, David was at his post by the door. Emily walked over to him. She held out the cleaning cloth she was still holding. "Thank you," she said. David nodded. "You don't have to thank me." "For knowing my mom," Emily said. "For telling me." David looked down at his shoes. When he looked back up, his eyes were sad. "She had your smile. The exact same smile. It's like seeing a ghost, but a good one." He clicked the pen in his hand 3 times. "I won't let anything happen to you, Emily. That's a new promise. And I keep my promises." Emily believed him. For the first time since her mother died, she looked at an adult and felt something that was not fear. It was a small, fragile seed of hope. She didn't know what to do with it, so she just nodded and went back to cleaning the glass case, her mind full of a mother named Anna and a promise made long ago. Sarah found Emily still at the same display case, carefully polishing the same spot on the glass. She had been doing it for 10 minutes. "You know," Sarah said, her voice light, "that spot is probably the cleanest piece of glass in all of Ohio by now." Emily stopped and looked at her cloth, embarrassed. "It's okay," Sarah said quickly. "Come on, I have something better to show you." She led Emily to a long counter with a soft mat on top. She unlocked a cabinet below and brought out a flat velvet tray. On it were dozens of sparkling rings, all lined up in neat rows. "These are the ones we're getting ready for the spring catalog," Sarah explained. "Each one has a little tag. See? This number tells us the style. This one tells us the price. My job is to check them all against this list." She held up a sheet of paper. "It's a lot," Emily said, looking at all the tiny stones. "It is, but it's like a puzzle. Everything has to match. It's satisfying when it's right." Sarah handed Emily the list. "Read the first number to me." Emily looked at the paper. "Style number 421. Sarah's finger moved along the tray. She found the ring with the matching tag. "Good. See? Now you know what I do all day." She smiled. "Want to help me?" "You can read the numbers." Emily nodded. For the next hour, they worked together. Sarah would find each ring, and Emily would put a small check mark next to the number on the list. It was quiet work. Emily liked it. Sarah didn't ask her hard questions. She just talked about the store. "Henry's grandfather started this place," Sarah said as she counted a row of earrings. "He sold watches and fixed clocks. Henry made it into this. He knows every single piece that has ever come through that door." "Does he know about the numbers?" Emily asked, pointing at the list. Sarah laughed. "Yes, but he hates them. He says the numbers are my kingdom. He just knows the jewels." Later, Sarah had to go to the back office to put away the tray. Emily followed her. The office was small and very organized. Papers were in neat stacks. Pens were in a cup. On a high shelf were several big, heavy-looking books with worn leather covers. "What are those?" Emily asked. "Those are the old ledgers," Sarah said, looking up. "From years and years ago, before computers. Henry's father wrote in them. Henry wrote in them too for a long time. Every sale, every purchase. It's all in there. She sighed. I should probably move them. They just collect dust. She pulled one down. The cover was thick with it. She blew on it, making a cloud. She opened the book. The pages were filled with beautiful looping handwriting and columns of numbers. This is from 20 years ago, Sarah mused, flipping a page. She stopped. Her smile faded. She turned another page. Then she quickly grabbed another ledger from the shelf, this one newer. She opened them both side by side on the desk. What's wrong? Emily asked. The numbers, Sarah whispered. She pointed to the old ledger. See here? This is a sale of a diamond bracelet. It was a very big sale. Her finger moved to the newer ledger, to an entry for the same month. But here, the amount of money that came into the store that month is much, much smaller. A lot smaller. Emily looked at the numbers. She didn't understand them all, but she could see that the number in the new book was not the same as the number in the old book. Maybe it was a different bracelet, Emily said. Sarah shook her head, her braid swaying. No, the description is the same. The date is the same. She flipped to another page into the old book, then found the matching page in the new one. Her eyes went wide. It's here too. And here. For years. She looked up at Emily, her face serious. Someone was putting the real sales in the old book, but writing different smaller numbers in the new book, the book we used for the bank. What does that mean? Emily asked, though a cold feeling was starting in her stomach. It means, Sarah said, closing the book softly, that for a long time, someone was taking money from the store, a lot of money, and hiding it. She didn't say the name. She didn't have to. Emily thought of Robert Miller's sharp, angry face. She thought of him yelling about the store being his. Does Henry know? Emily asked. Sarah put the ledgers back on the shelf very carefully. No. And I can't tell him. Not yet. Why not? Because it will break his heart, Sarah said, her voice sad. He doesn't want to fight his brother. He wants to believe Robert is just greedy, not a thief. If I show him this, it will be a war. And we need more proof. We need to know exactly how he did it. Sarah knelt down so she was eye level with Emily. This is our secret for now, okay? Just you and me. We have to be detectives. We have to look at every page in every one of these old books. Emily nodded. She understood secrets. She understood hiding things to stay safe. For the first time, she had a secret with someone. It made her feel a little less alone in the big, quiet store. Okay, Emily said. I can help. Sarah gave her a small, determined smile. I was hoping you'd say that. Emily lay in the yellow room staring at the ceiling. The house was so quiet at night. In the shelter, there was always noise, snoring, crying, the sound of someone pacing. Here, the silence was loud in her ears. It gave her mind space to wander, and it always wandered to the same place. Leo, her friend from the last shelter in Columbus. He was a year younger than her, with big, quiet eyes. He never talked much. They didn't need to talk. They would sit together at meals. They would save a fruit cup for each other if one of them missed dinner. When Emily left with her mother's last bus ticket to try her luck in a new town, she didn't even get to say goodbye to him. She just left. The guilt was a heavy stone in her chest. She had a bed now. He probably did not. The next morning at the store, Emily was quiet. She cleaned the cases without Sarah asking. She counted her steps from the door to the counter. 9 steps, 12 steps, 15 steps. You're thinking very hard over there, Sarah said. She was working at the computer, but she was watching Emily. Emily stopped polishing. She looked at Sarah's kind, waiting face. Do you think, is it okay to be safe when someone else isn't? Sarah put down her pen. Are you thinking about someone? A friend, Emily whispered. From before. His name is Leo. He's still at the shelter in Columbus. I just left him there. Sarah came out from behind the counter. She sat on the stool next to Emily. That's a hard feeling. Do you know if he's okay? Emily shook her head. No. We can find out, Sarah said simply. We can call the shelter. Emily's eyes went wide. We can? Of course we can. It's just a phone call. Sarah took her cell phone from her pocket. Do you remember the name of the shelter? Emily nodded. The Haven. On Maple Street. She remembered the sign, the chipped blue paint. Sarah found the number and dialed. She put the phone on speaker so Emily could hear. A woman answered after a few rings. "Hello, The Haven. This is Sister Maureen." "Hello," Sarah said. "My name is Sarah Chen. I'm calling to ask about a boy who might be staying with you. His name is Leo. He's about 12 years old." There was a pause on the other end. "Leo, yes, I know Leo. He's still with us." Emily leaned closer to the phone. "Is he okay?" she blurted out. "Who is this?" Sister Maureen asked. "This is his friend Emily. I used to be there." "Emily," the woman's voice warmed. "He asked about you. He was worried." The warmth faded. "He is not well, Emily. He has a very bad chest cold. He is in our infirmary. We are doing our best, but we are very crowded. It is hard for him to get the rest he needs." Emily looked at Sarah, her eyes full of panic. A bad chest cold. Her mother had a cough that turned into pneumonia. That's how it started. "Thank you, sister," Sarah said. "We appreciate your time." She hung up the phone. "She has to get better," Emily said, her voice trembling. "He has to get better." Sarah put a hand on Emily's back. "We should tell Henry." Henry was in the back, examining a watch with a special eyepiece. He listened as Sarah explained. He saw the fear on Emily's face. "We have to go," Emily said, her fists clenched at her sides. "We have to see him, please." Henry took off the eyepiece. He looked from Emily's pleading eyes to Sarah's serious nod. He thought of his daughter, Annie, all alone when she was sick. He thought of all the times he did not help. "Go get your coat, Emily," he said, his voice firm. "We will go to Columbus right now." The car ride took almost 2 hours. Emily sat in the back, watching the fields turn into buildings. She felt scared. Scared of seeing the shelter again. Scared of seeing Leo sick, but more scared of doing nothing. When they pulled up to the chipped blue sign, Emily's heart pounded. Henry turned off the car. "Are you ready?" She nodded. They went inside. The familiar smell of bleach and old soup hit her. Sister Maureen, a woman with glasses and a gentle face, led them to a small, dim room with 3 cots. Leo was on the middle one, sleeping. His breathing was raspy and quick. Emily walked over and touched his hand. His eyes fluttered open. He saw her, and a small, weak smile touched his lips. "You came back," he whispered, his voice scratchy. "I brought help," Emily said. She looked back at Henry, who stood in the doorway, his tall frame filling the space. He was looking at Leo, a deep sadness in his pale blue eyes. Henry stepped forward. He spoke to Sister Maureen. "What does he need?" "A quiet place to rest. Good food. Medicine he has finished. Mostly he needs not to be here. The air is not clean. It is not good for his lungs." Henry nodded. He looked at Emily, then at the sick boy. He saw the way Emily held Leo's hand, fierce and protective. He saw a chance to help, to be the person he wasn't for Annie. "Pack his things," Henry said to the sister, his voice leaving no room for argument. "He is coming with us." Leo's cough echoed in the quiet of the big house on Elm Street. He was tucked into the other guest room, next to Emily's. Sarah had brought over a vaporizer and some medicine. Henry made a phone call to a doctor he knew. Emily sat on the floor beside Leo's bed, reading a comic book out loud to him. His breathing was already a little easier. "He will be okay," Henry said, standing in the doorway. He sounded like he was trying to convince himself. "Good air, good food. It makes a difference." Emily nodded. She was grateful, but the worry was still there. It was a new kind of worry. Before, she only worried about herself. Now she worried about Henry and Leo and the store. It was exhausting. 2 days later, Emily was back at the jewelry store. Leo was sleeping at the house, and Henry said a woman from down the street would check on him. The store bell jingled, and a man Emily had never seen before walked in. He wore a plain jacket and had a friendly smile, but his eyes moved around the room very quickly, like he was taking pictures in his mind. "Hello," Sarah said from behind the counter. "Can I help you?" "Just admiring," the man said, his voice smooth. "Beautiful place, a real town institution." He leaned on the counter near Emily. "You're a little young to be working here, aren't you?" Emily didn't like his friendly tone. It felt fake. She shrugged and took a step back. "She's family," Sarah said, her voice cooler than usual. "Is that right?" the man said, his smile not changing. "That's nice. Family businesses are special." He looked at Emily a moment too long, then pretended to look at a display of watches. He left a few minutes later without buying anything. David, who had been silent by the door, clicked his pen 3 times. He was asking questions at the diner earlier, he said to Henry, who had just come out from the back, about the store, about a girl who showed up out of nowhere. Henry's face tightened. Robert. He hired a private investigator, David said. I saw the man's card on the seat of his car last week. He's digging. Digging for what? Sarah asked, her hand on Emily's shoulder. For dirt, Henry said, his voice tired. For anything that makes Emily look bad, or that makes me look like a fool. The next afternoon, Robert Miller returned. He did not come alone. A well-dressed woman with a sharp briefcase followed him. 2 customers were looking at engagement rings. Henry, Robert announced, his voice filling the store. We need to talk, now. The customers looked up, startled. This is not the time, Robert, Henry said, keeping his voice low. It is the perfect time, Robert said, even louder. He pointed at Emily, who was wiping down the front window. This charade has gone on long enough. You are being duped by a clever child. My lawyer, Miss Vance, agrees. The woman nodded, her face neutral. The story of a magical ring would not hold up in any court, Mr. Miller. The child's history is unstable. She has no birth certificate linking her to your daughter. This is a clear case of emotional manipulation. Emily froze, the cleaning cloth hanging from her hand. She felt the eyes of the customers on her. She saw their curious, unsure looks. She wanted to disappear into the floor. Get out, Henry said, his face turning a deep red. Or what? Robert laughed. You are an old man living in a fairy tale. The store is failing because you are not thinking clearly. You let this homeless girl and some sick boy from the city into your home. You are not responsible. The judge will see that. David moved. He did not walk fast, but his steps were solid. He placed his large body between Robert and Emily. He looked down at Robert, his expression unreadable. You need to leave the premises, David said, his voice flat and professional. Now. You are disturbing the customers. Robert glared up at him. You're just the hired help. Don't forget that. David didn't blink. My job is security. You are creating a security issue. Leave, or I will call the Cedarville police and have you removed for trespassing. Robert's eyes darted to the 2 customers, who were now whispering to each other. He scowled. He straightened his suit jacket. This isn't over, Henry. We will see each other in court, and everyone will know the truth. He shot one last nasty look at Emily before storming out, his lawyer following. The store was terribly quiet after the door slammed. The 2 customers quickly put down the rings they were holding and left without a word. Emily stood perfectly still. The words homeless girl and sick boy and emotional manipulation swirled in her head. She was a problem. She was causing all of this. She looked at Henry, who was breathing heavily, his hands clenched on the counter. She looked at Sarah, who was furious. She looked at David's broad back, still facing the door. The warm, safe feeling she had started to feel was gone, replaced by the cold fear she knew so well. Robert wasn't just yelling. He was telling the town a story about her, and she knew how those stories usually ended. Emily did not come down for dinner. Henry heard her footsteps above, pacing a slow path from her door to the window and back. 6 steps. Pause. 6 steps. Pause. He climbed the stairs and knocked softly on her door. Emily? No answer. He opened the door. She was sitting on the floor, her back against the bed, knees pulled to her chest. She stared at the wall. You should eat something, Henry said, standing awkwardly in the doorway. I'm not hungry, she said. Her voice was flat. Henry came in and sat heavily on the edge of the bed. The springs creaked. He looked at his large, age-spotted hands. What my brother said today, those were cruel words. They were meant to hurt. They were true, Emily said to the wall. I am from a shelter. Leo is from a shelter. We are a problem. No, Henry said, his voice firm. You are not. He is trying to win. He uses the truth like a weapon, but he does not know the whole truth. Emily was quiet for a long time. Then she spoke, her voice small. Why did my mom leave? The real reason. Henry flinched. He had known this question would come. He had practiced answers in his head. Now none of them seemed good enough. He took a slow breath. There was a fight, he began. A very bad fight. Your mother, Annie, she fell in love with a young man. His name was Ben. I did not think he was good enough for her. I thought he was careless. I thought he would not give her a good life." He stopped, gathering the words. "She said she loved him. She said she would go with him. I was so angry. I was afraid for her, but I did not say that. I said terrible things. I told her if she left with him, she should not come back. I said she was no longer my daughter." In the room next door, Leo's soft cough broke the silence. "She left that night," Henry whispered. "She chose him. And I was too proud, too stubborn. I waited for her to call. She did not call. I thought she would give up and come home. She never did. I never saw her again." Emily turned her head to look at him. Her hazel green eyes were hard. "You told her to leave?" "Yes," Henry said, the word full of pain. "And you never tried to find her?" "I tried," he said, his voice breaking. "After a year I tried, but she was gone. She moved many times. She did not want to be found. She was angry at me, and she was right to be angry." Emily looked back at the wall. She understood anger. She understood running away. She also understood being left behind. "So you lost her because you said a mean thing?" "It was more than a mean thing," Henry said. "It was the worst thing a father can say. I broke our family. I have cried for that mistake every single day for 15 years. He leaned forward, trying to catch her eye. "When you walked into my store, it was a miracle. It was a second chance. I know I do not deserve it, but I will not make the same mistake again." Emily wiped her nose with her sleeve. "What mistake?" "The mistake of letting pride be more important than love," he said. "The mistake of pushing family away. Robert is doing that now. He is letting his want for the store poison everything. I will not do that. I will not push you away." "Even if I am a problem?" Emily asked. "You are not a problem," Henry said, his voice strong and clear. "You are my granddaughter. Robert will take us to court. He will have lawyers. He will say terrible things, but I will be there. I will fight for you. I hired a lawyer today, a good one. We will prove you belong here." Emily was quiet. She thought about her mother, Annie, hearing those same angry words. She thought about Henry, alone in this big house for all those years. She saw that adults could be wrong. They could make huge, terrible mistakes that changed everything. But maybe, just maybe, they could also try to fix them. She didn't say it was okay. It wasn't okay. What he did was wrong. But she gave a small, slow nod. Henry nodded back, a weight lifting slightly from his stooped shoulders. The confession was out. The worst of his past was now in the room with them. It was a heavy thing to share, but it was no longer his alone to carry. The old ledgers were spread across the desk in the back office like a puzzle with an ugly picture. Sarah's eyes burned from staring at the tiny, faded numbers. It was past 9 o'clock at night. The store had been closed for hours. A single lamp cast a yellow circle of light on the pages. She heard the front door lock click. Heavy footsteps walked through the dark store. David appeared in the office doorway, his jacket on. "You're still here," he said. "So are you," Sarah replied, not looking up. "Just finishing my rounds." He paused. "Henry is worried. He said you didn't answer your phone." Sarah finally leaned back, rubbing her eyes. "It's on silent. I found it, David. All of it." David stepped into the small room. He looked at the open books. "The proof?" Sarah nodded. She pointed to one ledger. "This is the real book. Henry's father's writing. Every sale, perfect." Her finger moved to a newer book. "This is the book Henry used for the bank. See the same dates?" She pointed to 2 entries. "Here, a wedding ring set sold for $5,000. In the real book it says $5,000. In the bank book it says $1,500. David leaned in, his brow furrowed. $3,500 gone. "Exactly," Sarah said. She flipped pages. "It's here, and here, for 8 years. Always after Robert did the monthly bookkeeping for Henry. Small amounts at first, then bigger. The last 2 years before Henry took the books back from him, it was thousands every month." David let out a low whistle. "How much?" "A lot," Sarah said. She pushed a sheet of paper toward him. Her neat handwriting listed the missing amounts. At the bottom was a total. Over $200,000. The number hung in the quiet room. David clicked his pen 3 times, slowly. Robert needed to get the store. To hide this. Yes, if Henry sold the store or gave it to Emily, new people would look at the books. They would see the truth. Robert had to make sure he was the only one left to take over. Then no one would ever check. They both heard the back door open. Henry's voice called out, "Sarah? David? Are you here?" "In the office, Henry," Sarah called back. Henry came in, his face etched with worry. "What is going on? Emily said you looked like you saw a ghost when you left the house." "Sit down, Henry," Sarah said gently. Henry sat. Sarah turned the ledger around to face him. She explained it again, slowly, pointing to each pair of numbers. She showed him her list. Henry's face, already pale, went as white as his hair. He did not speak. He just stared at his brother's handwriting in the bank book, the numbers that lied. "He stole from me," Henry finally whispered. The words were not angry. They were full of a deep, aching hurt. "From his own family store, for years." "He was stealing from your future," David said quietly. "And from Emily's." Henry put his head in his hands. All this time, the arguments about money, about the store not doing well, it was him. He was the reason. "We have to show this to the judge," Sarah said. "It shows why he is fighting so hard. It shows he is not an honest man." Henry nodded, but he looked afraid. He will be desperate. A man who steals this much and is caught, he could do anything. "We will be ready," David said. He looked at Sarah's list, then at Henry. "There is something else. When I testify in court, I will not just talk about watching Robert. I will tell them I knew Annie. I will tell them Annie talked about her father, about you. I will tell them Emily has her smile. It will not just be about numbers. It will be about family." Sarah placed her hand over Henry's on the desk. "We have the proof, Henry. We have the truth. Now we have to be brave enough to use it." Henry looked at the damning numbers, then at the determined faces of Sarah and David. The last of his hope that his brother was just greedy, not cruel, evaporated. This was a war, and Robert had started it long ago. He took a deep, shaky breath. "Make copies of everything," he said, his voice gaining strength. "Give a set to our lawyer. Keep a set somewhere safe." He looked at David. "And thank you for being willing to speak." David just nodded. The secret he had carried about Annie was no longer a burden of guilt. It was a weapon for truth. They had a plan. But outside the circle of lamplight, the night felt darker, and they all knew the fight was about to get much harder. The morning of the court hearing was gray and cold. Emily put on the nicest dress she owned, a simple blue one Sarah had bought her. She counted the buttons down the front. 1, 2, 3. Henry stood at the bottom of the stairs. He wore a dark suit. His hands were clasped tightly in front of him. "Are you ready?" he asked. "No," Emily said truthfully. "That's all right," he said. "I am not ready either, but we will go together." In the car, Henry did not turn on the radio. The silence was heavy. "Our lawyer is a good man," Henry said after a while. "His name is Mr. Finch. He will do the talking. We just have to tell the truth when he asks us." "What if the judge doesn't believe us?" Emily asked, watching the bare trees go by. "Then we keep trying," Henry said. His voice was steady. "We have the truth on our side." The courtroom was a quiet, serious place with wood panels and a high ceiling. Robert was already there with his lawyer, Miss Vance. He did not look at them. Mr. Finch, a man with kind eyes and gray hair, waved them to a table at the front. Sarah and David sat in the first row of seats behind them. Sarah gave Emily a thumbs up. David just nodded once, his face solemn. A bailiff said, "All rise." The judge walked in, a woman with glasses and a calm face. She sat down, and the hearing began. Miss Vance spoke first. She stood up. "Your Honor, my client, Robert Miller, is here because his brother, Henry Miller, has been tricked. A homeless child with no proof has convinced him she is his long-lost granddaughter. The only so-called proof is a family story about a ring that glows. This is not evidence. This is a fairy tale. The child has no birth certificate. She has no records. She only has a sad story that played on an old man's grief." Mr. Finch stood up next. "Your Honor, Emily Wilson is the granddaughter of Henry Miller. The ring is a family heirloom with a documented history, but we have more than the ring. We have proof of a motive." He turned and nodded to Sarah. Sarah stood up and brought a stack of papers to Mr. Finch. He handed them to the judge. "These are the financial ledgers from Miller's fine jewelry. The ones in black are the originals. The ones in red are the copies my client used for his bank. For 8 years, the numbers do not match. Large amounts of money from sales were written down as smaller amounts in the bank book. The judge put on her glasses. She looked at the papers. Robert shifted in his seat. Mr. Finch continued. The person who did the bookkeeping for those 8 years was Robert Miller. He was stealing from the family business. He needs to get control of the store now to hide his crime. That is why he is fighting so hard to say Emily is not family. Robert's lawyer jumped up. This is a distraction. These numbers could mean anything. The judge held up a hand for quiet. She looked at Robert. Mr. Miller, can you explain these differences? Robert stood up. His face was red. This is nonsense. My brother is bad with money. He is blaming me for his own failures. That girl put these ideas in his head. His voice was loud and angry in the quiet room. The judge watched him, her expression unchanging. Then Mr. Finch said, Your Honor, we have one more witness. He can speak to the family connection. I called David Carter to the stand. David walked to the front of the room. He swore to tell the truth. He sat in the witness chair, back straight. Mr. Carter, how do you know the Miller family? Mr. Finch asked. I was a friend of Annie Miller, David said. His low voice carried in the silent courtroom. Henry's daughter, Emily's mother. We grew up together here in Cedarville. Robert made a disgusted sound. The judge looked at him, and he went quiet. What can you tell us about Annie? Mr. Finch asked. David looked at Henry, then at Emily. She was a good person. She loved her father, but they had a fight. She was sad about it. She talked about him. She told me once, my dad has a hard shell, but his heart is in the right place. She hoped one day to fix things. He paused, clicking his pen in his pocket 3 times. When I saw Emily for the first time in the store, I knew who she was. She has her mother's smile, the exact same smile. It is not a trick, it is family. Miss Vance stood up for cross-examination. Mr. Carter, you are a security guard. You are not a family member. You are paid by Henry Miller. Why should we believe you? David looked right at her. I am not paid to lie. I am here because I made a promise to Annie a long time ago, a promise to look out for her family. I failed that promise once. I will not fail it today by staying silent. He stepped down from the witness chair and went back to his seat. The courtroom was completely still. The judge looked at all the papers in front of her. She looked at Henry and Emily, sitting together. She looked at Robert, who was scowling. She did not say what she was thinking. The judge took off her glasses. She looked at Robert Miller for a long moment. Then she spoke. The court finds the evidence of financial wrongdoing by Robert Miller to be very clear. His strong interest in the outcome of this family matter is now explained. She turned her gaze to Henry and Emily. As for the question of family, the testimony of Mr. Carter is sincere. The ring, while unusual, is part of a documented family history. But more than that, the court sees a child who has been welcomed into a home and cared for. We see a grandfather who is committed. Family is not only about papers, it is about action. I see the actions of a family here. She made her ruling. Emily Wilson is recognized as the granddaughter and heir of Henry Miller. The store and all assets shall remain with Henry Miller and pass to Emily in time. Robert Miller is ordered to repay all stolen funds in full within 6 months. A separate hearing will be set to review the repayment plan. Robert shot up from his chair. This is a mistake. You are all fools. The bailiff stepped forward, and Robert's lawyer quickly pulled him out of the courtroom, his shouts fading down the hall. Henry let out a long, shaky breath. He put a heavy hand on Emily's shoulder. She looked up at him, and for the first time she didn't see just a sad old man. She saw her grandfather. It's over, Sarah said, hugging them both. David stood nearby, a small, real smile touching his eyes for the first time. 2 weeks later, the house on Elm Street was no longer quiet. Leo's cough was gone. His laugh filled the kitchen at breakfast. Henry had fixed up the small sunroom as a bedroom for him. Do you want more pancakes, Leo? Henry asked, holding the spatula. Yes, please, Leo said, his plate already empty. See, Sarah said to Emily, pouring more orange juice. I told you the rule. Seconds are in order. Emily smiled. She ate her breakfast without counting anything. At the store, everything was the same, but better. Emily helped Sarah organize a new shipment. She knew where everything went now. David still stood by the door, but he talked more. He told Emily small stories about her mother as a girl. They were good stories. One afternoon, Henry called Emily to the main display case. The simple silver ring sat on its blue velvet pillow. The case was unlocked. "It belongs to you," Henry said. "You should wear it if you want." Emily looked at the ring. She thought about the first time she saw it, when it glowed with a golden light just for her. That light had changed everything. She reached into the case and picked it up. It felt cool in her hand. She slipped it onto her finger. It fit perfectly. She waited. The ring did not glow. It was just a beautiful, simple piece of silver and stone. Henry nodded, understanding. "It doesn't need to glow anymore." "Why not?" Emily asked. "Because you are already home," he said. "The ring's job was to bring you home. Now it's just a ring, a reminder." Emily looked at the ring on her finger. She looked around the store, at Sarah arranging necklaces, at David writing in his logbook, at her grandfather polishing a watch. She thought of Leo at school and her own bed in the yellow room. The war was over. The family was real. She didn't feel like a street kid anymore. She didn't feel like a problem. She felt like Emily Miller. She kept the ring on, a quiet weight on her hand, a reminder of where she belonged.